new view of the Laquan McDonald killing, a different angle from a nearby business.
CBS 2's Jeremy Ross with more on the allegations of a cover-up and those who say what's missing in that video is not malicious.
On the outside of a Dunkin' Donuts, we see officers get out of a police SUV. One is CPD officer Jason Van Dyke.
Chicago is a city with a long memory. A memory shaped not just by architecture, culture, or resilience, but by violence. Not random violence, but systemic violence. The kind that comes from institutions that were meant to protect, but instead caused harm. From the torture of black men under Police Commander Jon Burge to the killing of Laquan McDonald, Chicago's history with policing is not a story of isolated incidents. It's a pattern, and that pattern raises a question. What happens when the systems meant to deliver justice fail? This video explores that question and the people building alternatives, because across Chicago, communities aren't just demanding reform, they're reimagining justice itself. To understand why alternative justice models exist, we need to understand what they're responding to. Take the case of Jon Burge.
Elsewhere, he leaves behind a legacy of torture and more than 100 alleged victims.
Could you state your name, sir?
Jon G. Burge, B-U-R-G.
That man and name are now synonymous with police torture in Chicago. For decades, victim after victim has talked about what they endured by or under the former Chicago police commander's watch. One, Eric Kane, is indifferent about Burge's death.
We cannot count as torture in this country or by this country. And until all people who torture and all those people who are responsible for torturing are brought to justice, the conscience of Chicago and the conscience of this country cannot be cleansed.
Between the 1970s and 1990s, Burge and officers under his command tortured over 100 black men. These weren't allegations that appeared overnight. Evidence accumulated for decades. Men were beaten, electrocuted, suffocated, and many were convicted based on confessions extracted under that torture. So what happened to Burge? He wasn't convicted of torture. He was convicted of perjury. That outcome isn't just disappointing, it reveals something deeper. It shows how systems of accountability often protect themselves. This isn't just about one man, it's about structure. According to anti-corruption research out of the University of Illinois, Chicago, police misconduct is often reinforced by internal culture, especially something known as the blue code of silence. Officers don't report each other, misconduct goes unchallenged, and accountability becomes the exception, not the rule. Now consider a more recent case, Laquan McDonald.
A new view of the Laquan McDonald killing, a different angle from a nearby business.
CBS 2's Jeremy Ross with more on the allegations of a cover-up and those who say what's missing in that video is not malicious.
From the outside of a Dunkin' Donuts, we see officers get out of a police SUV. One is CPD officer Jason Van Dyke as he shoots and kills 17-year-old Laquan McDonald.
In 2014, a 17-year-old black teenager was shot 16 times by Chicago police officer Jason Van Dyke. Initial reports claimed McDonald posed a threat, but when dashcam footage was finally released after prolonged legal pressure, it told a different story. McDonald was walking away. The truth was there. It just wasn't immediately allowed to be seen. A Department of Justice investigation later found that Chicago police routinely use excessive force disproportionately against black residents. And yet, even with thousands of misconduct complaints filed each year, fewer than 10% result in sustained findings. Think about that. Thousands of complaints with almost no consequences. This is the core problem with punitive justice systems. They focus on individuals but ignore systems. They punish when necessary, but rarely prevent harm. And for communities that experience this harm repeatedly, Punishment alone isn't enough. So the question becomes, if the system can't fix itself, what replaces it? Enter transformative justice. Unlike traditional systems, transformative justice doesn't center punishment. It centers healing. It asks different questions. Not just what law was broken, but who was harmed? Why did it happen? And how do we prevent it from happening again? This approach recognizes something crucial. Violence doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's shaped by inequality, by trauma, by systemic neglect. So instead of responding to harm with more harm, transformative justice seeks to interrupt the cycle. It emphasizes accountability, but not in the form of incarceration. Instead, accountability becomes a process, one that involves the person who caused harm, the person who experienced it, and the community around them. It's slower, more complex, but potentially more effective, because it doesn't just react, it transforms. One of the most powerful examples of transformative justice in Chicago is the Chicago Torture Justice Center. The CTJC was created as a part of a historic reparations ordinance, one that acknowledged the city's role and decades of police torture. That alone is significant, because acknowledgement is something traditional systems often resist. But the CTJC goes further. It doesn't just recognize harm, it responds to it. The center provides services like counseling, legal support, and public education, resources specifically designed for survivors of police torture. And that matters, because traditional systems rarely prioritize survivors. They focus on verdicts, sentences, closure through punishment. But for many survivors, that's not enough. Healing doesn't come back from a conviction. It comes from being supported, heard, and given the tools to rebuild. The CTJC represents a shift in how we define justice. Justice is no longer just about punishment, it's about repair, community, and making sure harm is not only acknowledged, but addressed in a way that restores dignity. Transformative justice isn't just about responding to past harm, it's about preventing future harm. And that's where organizations like Assata's Daughters come in. Assata's Daughters is a Black-led abolitionist organization focused on political education and youth empowerment. Their work is rooted in a simple but radical idea. Safety doesn't come from policing, it comes from community. Through workshops and organizing, they challenge dominant narratives about crime and punishment. They ask young people to think critically about the systems around them and to imagine alternatives. Because if violence is shaped by inequality, then preventing violence means addressing inequality, not just reacting to it. This is what transformative justice looks like in action. It's proactive, it's educational, and it's about building a world where harm is less likely to happen in the first place. Another organization pushing this vision forward is GoodKids MadCity Inglewood. Their approach reframes violence entirely. Instead of seeing it as a criminal issue, they see it as a public health issue, and that changes everything. Because if violence is like a disease, then the solution isn't punishment, it's prevention, it's treatment, it's care, not more policing. GoodKids MadCity advocates for investments in education, employment, and mental health services because they recognize that stability, not surveillance, is what creates safety. This approach challenges a deeply ingrained belief that more police equals more safety. In reality, these organizations argue the opposite. Safety comes from resources, from opportunity, from community support systems that address harm before it escalates. Of course, these models aren't without challenges. One of the biggest is scale. Community organizations often operate with limited funding. Meanwhile, policing institutions receive billions. That imbalance makes expansion difficult. There's also skepticism. For many people, punishment feels necessary, even intuitive. Letting go of that mindset isn't easy. But here's the reality. The current system isn't working. The persistence of police violence, misconduct, and a lack of accountability shows that reform alone isn't enough. So the question isn't whether transformative justice is perfect, it's whether it offers something better. Chicago's history forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. Justice, as we know it, has failed many of the people it was meant to protect. But in that failure, something new is being built. Organizations like the Chicago Torture Justice Center, Assata's Daughters, and GoodKids MadCity are doing more than filling gaps. They're creating a different vision of justice, one rooted in healing, in accountability, and community. This isn't just an alternative. For many, it's a necessity. Because if we want a safer world, we have to ask not just how we punish harm, but how we prevent it, how we repair it, and how we ensure it doesn't happen again. Justice isn't just about what we can do after harm, it's about the world we build so that harm becomes less inevitable.